computer.
Okay, I am launching on my computer. Okay, got it.
Are we
I'm gonna
connected?
join.
Do I hear you?
Here we are. And we're both
Oh
married
my
names.
God. Finally.
What was that?
That was technology and me not knowing how to do stuff. Okay. Hi.
Hi! The
We're
third
gonna upload
time's the
this.
charm.
Let me just begin this thing. Welcome,
Okay.
Francesca Mondanaro of Studio Mondanaro. This is the first official episode, I don't know which, of Craft of the Art and the Art of the Craft. I talked a little bit about this on Friday when I was trying to do it then. Why I'm starting this program is because I wanted to curate a space for professional singers, lovers of the craft of classical vocal singing, to be able to talk not only about how we do the craft, what it's comprised of, what's technique, what is it like to make what is art, right? How do we
Yes.
make art with our craft? And everything in between. But I think before we can get to um, the 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 philosophy of everything, I think it's important to begin with the basics of what the craft is. So technique. So these first episodes, especially as I figure out how to schedule them, how to put them online, will be mainly devoted to what I call the trinity of the technique of the craft, which is inhale, exhale, and you could say voice optimization or the shaping of the instrument. And then all of those sub compartments that are underneath those big topics. But this very first episode is about inhale, INALARE. Um, I mean, also, I wanted to do this program because I don't think anything like this exists anymore. If you're old enough, maybe you remember when Bravo TV was a TV station, and there was a place called the Actor Studio, still there, but James Lipton had a show called Inside the Actor Studio. And I grew up on this. I was obsessed, and he would bring on guests, usually named actors, and they would talk about the craft and the work. So I wanted to do for a very long time to do something similar, a space for us to talk
Mhm.
about it. So you'll see there'll be times when I'll have guests. There may be times when I don't have guests, but today I have something very, very special. You can see I have Francesca Mondanaro. Um, can I read a little bit of your biography to everyone?
Yes, you can read from my fancy
Great.
schmancy teacher biography if you
Um,
like.
Good. So, let me just pop around. I met, first of all, Francesca sitting outside of Arthur Levy's studio. So we have going back way, 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 way back in the
Way,
day.
way, way back in the
What
day.
was that?
Yeah.
54th and 7th? Where were we?
Yes.
Fluffy's
55th and
Cafe.
7th.
Fluffies, yeah. Many moments of bad cups of coffee, and long, awesome conversations outside that door. Um, Known for her exacting technological work while creating a nurturing, supportive environment in the private studio and in masterclass, Francesca has been on visiting faculty of the Vancouver Academy of Music since 2017, as well as guest master teacher for the Young Artist Program at Vancouver Opera since 2018. She has worked in master class for the Summer Vocal Academy at Brooklyn Academy of Music since 2020, as well as having been invited to work as a mentor and master teacher for the Art Smart Foundation, headed by Michael Fabiano of the Met Opera since 2020. She maintains a very busy studio in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Montreal, as well as working online with internationally working clients. She's busy because in the current 23-24 season, some of her clients include role debuts at the Metropolitan Opera, Eve Gigliotti, hey as Suzuki and Madame Butterfly, choral appointments in the Chicago Lyric Opera, and roles with Glimmerglass Opera, Chautauqua Charleston Symphony. In the 22-23 season, her singers also made principal role debuts with Santa Fe Opera, Philadelphia Orchestra, San Diego Opera, Florentine Opera, Center for Contemporary Opera. Seen as a soloist and featured singer with prestigious all women's a cappella group Wishful Singing, now touring exclusively in Europe, and in a featured role in the North American tour of Disney Aladdin. In the 2021-22 season, Francesca's students were heard performing role debuts with Opera Orlando, Opera Birmingham, Teatro Lirico d'Europa, Philadelphia French Festival, Barn Opera in Vermont, Opera Huntsville, Opera San Jose, Santa Fe Symphony, and returned to perform with companies such as Opera Delaware, Opera on the Rock, Opera Huntsville, Lyric Opera of Maryland, and the Broadway production of The Phantom of the Opera, just to name a few. It continues. A small number of venues her clients have recently and are currently performing with in lead roles and in full chorus appointments include Seattle Opera, the Metropolitan Opera, San Francisco Opera, Vancouver Opera, Opera Victoria, Deutsche Oper Berlin, Komische Oper Berlin, is this Bühnebaden? Hamburger Kammeroper, Grimborn Festival, Boston Baroque, Austin Lyric Opera, Arizona Opera, Michigan Opera Theater, Opera Theater of St. Louis leads swing and ensemble appointments in musical theater productions as Fan of the Opera, Broadway, Sweeney Todd, Broadway National Tour, Carousel Broadway, A Bronx Tale on Broadway, The Last Ship Broadway, concert debuts at such venues as Alice Tully Hall, Carnegie Hall, National Performing Arts Center in Beijing, Pritzker Hall in Chicago, and lead singers in rock bands on national and international tours at such venues as Gramercy Theater in NYC, the Viper Room in LA, South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Live at Heart Festival, Sweden, and Rock Hanover in Germany, and much more. Please welcome the awesome dramatic soprano artist humanitarian that is Francesca Mondanaro. We need the applause button, the applausometer. Um, thank you so much for bearing with me through what has been, as you've seen, a major challenge getting this
Mhm.
done. I want to talk today about inhale. I call it the trinity of the technique because I think basically it's these three things. You have to
Mm,
inhale, you have to open the instrument.
yes,
You got to take it out of the box. You got to hold it. You got to hold the box open. And then you have to do perhaps certain management of the space that is above the box, we'll call it for now.
yes,
So those are three basic things. You know, the first thing you do when you arrive on the planet and the last thing you do, right? It's inhale and exhale.
that's
Um,
right.
it's like the word, the alpha and the omega of it. Um, the word also inspirare comes to mind to
Mm,
inspire, right?
mhm.
To it's life giving, it's life sustaining. It's the most important event that your body does. And when you are a classical singer, it is quite literally um, the entirety, the respiratory anatomy is the vocal anatomy, right?
Yes,
Um, so the respiratory anatomy is involuntary, but we do this special hyper heightened version of it where we take it off of automatic and switch it to manual.
yes, we do.
So
We
we
do. And I was
become,
thinking about,
yeah,
Mhm. I was thinking about this being your subject because I mean, we can get into the bells and the whistles of, what muscles are coordinating and doing what things and what tendons and muscular coordinations are pulling and stretching to make inhale happen. I Now that I've been around for half a minute as a full-time teacher and not a singer who teaches, those are two very, very different things, I think, in this
yeah,
world,
yeah, they
in our
are.
industry. What I find is that what's actually happened muscularly is comes from an organic place. It's not complicated. However, human beings are complicated, and they're psychologically and emotionally complicated. And so when I've had a singer walk through my studio doors, and the voice is somehow at some level of dysfunction, um, there's something that's slightly off. More than half the time, it's how they are, what their alignment is, what their body alignment is, how they're walking into the room, and what their energy is, how they're literally taking in their breath. And I would say more often than not, I am tending to just calming them down, getting them to a place of stasis,
Yeah.
and getting to a place of paying attention to their body more like a machine than anything else,
Yeah.
because there's some sort of interference that's getting in the way of what naturally happens. I personally come from a school of, semantics and vocabulary can get super complicated. So from a muscular standpoint, I believe in low breathing. In other words, I believe that there are things that happen below the intercostals, that happen below the thoracic cavity. So the whole lumbar region, which is just a fancy scientific way of saying the the parts of your spine and the muscles wrapping around to support the lower back that are under where you feel your lowest ribs that wrap around into the floating ribs, those are directly connected to opening up the box, as in the vocabulary that you use. I
Yeah.
talk about, yeah.
Let me start you there.
Mm,
So, um, in order to get this, so there, let me back up.
yes,
Why is this lower lobe the lowest lobe of the lungs? There are three lobes, right?
yes,
Okay, we're going to start from the bottom and go up. Why is there this one inhale that's the best? I mean, you could be taking this thoracic one here, this sort of the one that everybody kind of thinks is the lowest
exactly.
breath, right?
You could,
You could be taking
and if
this.
you're in a place of real, you can take the clavicular one that goes up this way.
Why is
So
this one the best? Tell me your
so for
version of that.
me, for me as a singer, and for the singers that I've been able to help the most that come from a place of shallow breathing,
Mm,
it's a very unscientific way to say it. It opens your throat. It allows for the base of the larynx to release into a neutral position so that the larynx can go into tilt. And tilt feels different depending on the person that you're dealing with, right? Each
yes.
person walks into your studio with their own
Proprioceptive,
vocabulary. Yeah,
right?
the
Sensation of how
vocabulary that
they
they've
feel their body.
attached to their
Totally.
vocabulary about how they talk about their own body, how they experience their own sensations. But on the outside looking in, it's the same healthy balance, or
Right.
the same balance that gets, as I like to say, the most sound that I'm going to get out of your face without you feeling like you're working really hard for it. You shouldn't be feeling anything
Can we
here,
hashtag
right?
it? The most
Anything
sound
that
I'm going to get
hurt.
out of your face.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to get that sound out of your face and it's not going to hurt. That's
That's the
kind of,
goal.
yes, that's the
Yeah, so
goal.
this breath is the best is because it's the one that simply opens the instrument to its
Yes,
optimum, let's say largest or most resonant or most liberated possibility.
yes.
It's as if
And
you're
when we
with the grand
say that,
piano, you're taking the lid, you're holding it up. You could talk about appoggio, part two, as being that rib that holds open the
yes,
lid.
exactly.
I don't know. That's
Yes,
actually side note why I always keep my lid open in the piano in the
yes.
teaching room is
And
like
by saying that, what I'm not saying is, I'm not asking you to tank up. I'm not asking you to tank too much air, to over breathe. I'm not asking a singer to manipulate the base or the root of the tongue to
ooh,
look for space.
my
That's not what we're talking
favorite.
about. I feel sometimes people hear the terms open throat or neutral throat and they automatically panic,
Right, and they start
because
pushing to make the
they
space
think
that
that it
doesn't
means,
actually make
no,
space.
it's about taking somebody's body from a level of uh where where their muscular coordination is out of balance and pull them in what's going to feel like to them the opposite direction to get them to just get out of their own way, as I
Okay,
like
so
to
let
say.
me let me just put this in a box. We
Yes.
want the lowest lobe of the lung inhale to happen.
Yes.
We have to we have to ensure that there are some significant impediments that I'm going to get to the mind in a minute. That's maybe the
Yes.
biggest one. But there's some significant, there's not many, but there are some very big physical impediments that can, literally impede
Yes.
to be able to draw that kind of inhale, right? Because you need
Yes.
the lower lumbar region to be soft, or at least those muscles need to be flexible and not already pushed out of alignment. So that would mean that the pelvis would need to
Exactly.
be correctly
Under
aligned, which is
you.
under, booty
That's
under, right? Not booty
under.
out.
And it's going to feel for somebody who's been walking in the world overly compressed. In other words, they're standing sway back and they're not conscious of their lumbar region. They're holding tons of tension.
Oh
When it
man,
finally releases, it might feel like they're walking around like Cro-Magnon man.
right? It's very
But
strange.
visually, if they were to look at themselves in the mirror, they're just in alignment.
It would just look
So
beautiful, honestly.
there's that.
But so
There's
there's let me start from the feet up, right?
yes,
Generally, a lot of people have some sort of an arch, supination, pronated,
yes.
whatever. There's something
Either
happening
over or
with
under
their feet,
pronated. Yeah,
either or, and or they wear funny shoes. They don't understand that so therefore their ankles are out of alignment, their knees
right.
are out of alignment, right? And most of the time hyperextended behind them. Their knees are not
Yes, and
soft or
they can
bent.
also be locked in the knees and
Exactly.
yeah,
So that would definitely mean that your hip and pelvic region, your pelvic, uh, the pelvis itself is actually tilted the wrong way,
yes,
which will
the
mean in
posture.
order
You
for your
can't see the
spine not to fall apart and you to still
yes,
be a human person, the rest of the muscles of the back have to do this like
that's
grab
right.
you system in order to keep you upright.
That's
So,
right.
understanding the correct alignment of the entire body, starting from the ground all the way to the head, is essential. Whether that's
Absolutely.
Alexander technique, whether that's studying it, whether that's going to chiropractors, massage therapists, you may have
I
uh,
also like Feldenkrais,
yes, you
a
may need
lot.
all
He's
kinds of therapies. You may
yeah,
need to have your feet seen and fixed. You may need to work on scoliosis issues. All of that, yes. But no one can escape the absolute uh, of having you that pelvic region has to be corrected. A.
yes,
I don't care what your
absolutely.
problem is. You have to have your spine correct before this happens. Okay, so that's physical. And for some
Yes.
people, that's a big thing to get over. I
It
mean,
is a big deal to
it's
get
a
over.
shock, I think, for a
Yeah,
lot of people who come into the studio and they're like, I just can't get the breath. I'm like, I'm just looking at your
that's right.
knees and I'm
That's
hurting
right.
watching you
Yeah.
stand there like,
I've said this more than once to singers because we want to be careful. I think the mark of a good teacher is someone who is paying attention to and nurturing the individual. So what one student needs is different than what another student needs. However, I do find myself repeating adages. And one of my adages is, if something feels out of alignment from the larynx up, we got to check what's going on under the clavicle. What is going on lower in the body? Put your mind's eye there. Sometimes I'll ask singers just to observe. In other words, to get to vocabulary is such a persnickety thing. And we don't want our singers, especially our singers with A-type personalities or who have a lot of trauma about fear of not being perfect, fear of being
mm,
judged. I like to use language that allows them to be. So I'll just say, can you just observe when you take a breath what's going on in your posterior pelvic region, what's going on in the back? And just by watching, putting their mindfulness there, it will sort of fall into alignment. But it's, yeah.
I'm going to take your word mindfulness and now pull you towards a second point, which is
Hmm.
about the mind.
Yes.
What's interesting about, I mentioned earlier that we're taking the most essential life force, the thing that happens as soon as you are brought out of your mother.
Mm-hmm.
You inhale, okay? So this involuntary thing that happens all day long at
Mm.
a lower level for most people, right? They have
Yes.
very underdeveloped intercostal, external intercostal, and internal intercostal muscles. But regardless, it's happening all day long to save your life, and you're not aware of it. And we're taking that off of automatic and putting it on manual, and we're hyperextending both actions, the inhale and the exhale of it. But that you can't take nature's most important thing that it does
Mm-hmm.
all day for you, all day long, cannot be done just, okay, let me, right? There has to be a deep mindfulness. There has to
Mm-hmm.
be, it's in, so in when you come to a lesson and you're looking for, oh, I want to sing better and let me get this audition done, don't
Mm-hmm.
bother coming to my, I'm gonna tell you right now, don't come to my studio for that. I don't even care. If you got that, it's because you're not breathing well. It's always
Mm-hmm.
about respiration somehow,
Yeah.
somewhere. It's either in the inhale or the exhale, what you've done after you've drawn the breath or before
That's
you've
right.
drawn it, either or both. So we're not getting to you singing that awesome if we're not mindful about how you began. The technique is everything that happened before you made sound.
That's right.
You
Yeah,
either
it's sort
nailed
of
it
like,
or you didn't. Before there's a sound released, like the bow and the
it
arrow,
has to be
the
aligned.
technique is
Exactly.
before you swing to hit the ball, whatever your body position is in is what determines the outcome. This is just physics, right? This is
Yeah.
not
It's
fancy
how
voice
it's
teacher
how
math.
you're setting up your instrument before you lean and onset your sound,
I didn't make that
basically.
up. That's
No,
just for
just
every
it's
action, there's an
just
equal and opposite.
science.
There's just
Yeah.
it's just science. It just is
And I think,
natural science.
speaking of mindfulness, if you have singers, everybody's personality is different, everybody's
Mm.
relationship to their instrument is different.
Oh man.
And so, I've, I'm starting to work with an amazing mezzo who's actually one of my colleagues, um, who's in a place of extreme fatigue and is panicking about their fatigue. And so getting their inhale in alignment is more emotional and psychological than it actually is physical, because when they actually have good sleep and are feeling good about themselves and not beating themselves up about needing to be perfect every second of every day, then
Yeah.
the inhale doesn't even need addressing. But this is a time when the singer, in order to execute the way that they're expected to, the way that they desire to, must become mindful of what's actually happening, not only about how they're actually inhaling, but the way that they're talking to themselves is affecting their inhale. I know that sounds very, very woo woo to anybody out there. That's not an excuse, right? You have to work with somebody that can tell you down to hopefully can tell you down to the muscles what is actually happening in your body when they ask you to do something. At the same time, we cannot underestimate how we throw ourselves for a loop, um, with some of my emerging young artists who are super green and who want it really, really badly and have bought, drunk the Kool-Aid about, if I don't make a yap by the time I'm 23, I'm done. Their breathing, their existing is so unbelievably panicked and rushed that they haven't slowed down enough to build any consistency. And the minute they give themselves permission to not drink the Kool-Aid anymore, magically the voice starts lining up because they're quiet enough in themselves to actually pay attention to what's going on in the body
So
and give themselves a chance to build the instrument,
to build it,
you know?
let
Yeah.
let me bring you back around to that. So we've got but let's say we've fixed the physical aspects that have aligned the spine correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to, with the mind, with the intention, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
incept. You have to seed it. You have to understand that you have to sow the thought of the calm, low inhale
Mm-hmm.
and imagine a cabaletta, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to really be a master of holding the mind in a calm way so that you can always take the quick, low, calm breath. In
Mm-hmm.
order for that breath to happen, like you were saying earlier, you you have to not you cannot force
No.
the breath breathes itself because it's an involuntary action. If your spine is correctly aligned, you will automatically be taking the lower lobe, the right
Mm-hmm.
inhale. I'm doing it right
Yeah.
now because my pelvis is under me.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't, that also means I can't. A lot of people, they try to like make space for this big whatever
Right.
something shape that they think it is, and they're pushing down. Now they've covered the trachea
It's
slightly
funny.
with the epiglottis by pushing here. Um,
Right.
they're forcing this tummy to go out and all of this jazz. You're like, ooh, nope.
It's a funny thing. I like to say I have my cabinet of useless metaphors, and one of them is, the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? Everything is this is why, again, singers come, well, that's a whole other conversation. Singers are built to be codependent, I think, around the industry and very often come from a place of lack and I'm not enough and I need to be perfect and I need to do the perfect thing. And if I don't do perfect, so they're already coming from a place of extremes. And finding the balance in each person's body is different. So I like to say it's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, like this porridge is too hot, this porridge is too cold, and this porridge is just right. So we're finding the just right for you and what those sensations feel like when I, as the person that's taking responsibility for your instrument, I see and I hear the results of you being aligned.
Exactly.
That is a voice. Very often I will have my singer say, I just feel like I'm out of my own way. I feel like the sound is outside of me. I feel
Right.
like I'm watching the sound happen. I
Right.
feel like
Was it
I'm
Gidi
watching
that
the high
said,
notes happen,
was it
right?
Benjamin Gidi that said the invisible throat could have been?
Yeah,
It's that
exactly.
that sensation that there is a nothingness here,
A
but for
nothingness
sure there's going
here.
to be a bunch of work here and a bunch of work.
Exactly. I've had singers say, I've never worked so hard in my life, but I feel like I'm not working because where they feel the effort is not from an overtly
Right.
muscled place that actually ends up constricting the instrument, leading to not healthy cord closure, all that kind of stuff. And it's about each person finding their balance. And you need to be in communication with your teacher, right? Because you are your instrument. Talk about having to be vulnerable, right? It's like
Well,
you can't separate yourself with a capital S from your instrument. We're
that's
talking
this
about
is perhaps
breathing.
a whole other show
That's a whole other
because to
kettle of
be able
fish.
to
Yeah.
take, first of all, yourself and align your pelvic region and release tension, to
Yeah.
be able to have the mental strength and calmness to be able to take the breath on command when you want it takes
Yes.
a type of emotional maturity and or a type of vulnerability that you are able to provide. So,
Yes.
but
Yes.
most people, I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't say most, but I would say a healthy number of people that have come to work with me have traumas
Yeah.
and they end up putting them somewhere in the body. And often
Absolutely.
it's in the, sacral area.
And
So you
it's
have to
not,
be
and again,
really, they have to feel safe around you.
yes, for
So if
anybody
you're one
that's,
of those crazy toxic people, and
mhm,
you know that teacher's crazy and toxic, look at me, young singer.
yeah, it's not
You're
going to
not going
work.
to get that low breath with her if that's what you're coming to her for.
And it's not, this is not
Sorry, not
woo
sorry.
woo. yeah, for anybody, I believe it's Vander Kolk who wrote, I believe it's called either the body knows the score or the body understands the score. I'll send you the
Yeah, I
link,
don't know.
but it's actual science that we hold traumas in the body. We
For sure.
we express our fear, our emotions physically, and sometimes that can be confronting. It depends on the person. I would also say it also takes patience, because the other thing too is that the muscular coordination is organic and exaggerated, to use your vocabulary. But like we said before, human beings are complicated. And also, I think people overestimate, there's a certain type of toxicity in the industry, which is this. I have somebody I'm going to see right after I talk to you, a singer who came to me, who worked with a teacher who would say things to her like, I'm the only one that knows how to help you with your singing. Nobody else is going to be able to help you. And then every year, like, made the rules of technique more and more complicated, which fostered this very toxic codependent relationship, like guru disciple relationship, which I'm not for that at all.
Of course not.
You can respect your master and still know who you are as a person, right?
Of course.
Um, but we underestimate the stubbornness of muscular coordination and how long it actually takes to build consistency in the body, especially if your teacher is pulling you from a place of relative dysfunction or like a really, really stubborn coordination.
Mm,
In general, I have found that singers who are over compressed, who want to just like lock those ribs out, who are like emotionally violent with the body or hard in their coordination instead of flexible and stretchy, especially if there is inhale to the point of tension right here, like in these like hyoid muscles, right? In the tongue, in the
mm,
jaw, under the solar plexus.
mm. And they want
I
to tell
say
you,
to,
I'm doing it.
right. And then that stubbornness takes time. It just takes time for those muscles to trust that the ones that you're asking to take over the job are going to take over the job. And
And
that's
again,
also being vulnerable. Yeah, that takes being
about that mindful.
mindful, being calm, being good to yourself, being patient, not beating yourself up when it feels amazing the first 3 times you do it. And then for the rest of the lesson, you can't find it. It doesn't mean that your teacher is a charlatan or pulling you in the wrong way. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It means that you have this very stubborn coordination that is the reason why you're looking to work with somebody new. This person is going to help you fix it, but you have to be willing to stick it out long enough to start building consistency.
I think you
And
also have to
it just
question,
takes time. It
you have
takes
to
time.
also question you have to admit to yourself that you need to question what you've learned, what you've put
Yes,
together.
absolutely.
Is it serving you? Can you mix these philosophies?
Right.
Can you not? I don't know. Maybe the answer is yes, maybe it's no. But
Exactly. And everybody has a right to figure out what's right for them
right.
personally.
But I
And
think
anybody worth their salt in this business is going to be honest with you, tell you what they're hearing, tell you how they're going to help you get to where you say that you want to go, and honor your answer as to whether you think that journey, that direction in the journey is the right way for you,
yeah.
which is also another, conversation.
So this is what I'm gonna do. I want to keep. I think this needs a second. I think this
I
needs a
know we need a
second
part
version.
two.
We got
Do we
balloons.
get we
We
got
got a party.
balloons?
I don't even know what this new thing that's going on.
I don't
Apple products.
know.
Anyway, okay. So I'm gonna
We'll do
close
a part
this
six.
chapter for this moment.
Yes.
And I want to ask you some fun questions here at the end,
Okay.
these last 3 or 4 minutes. But I'd like to invite you back also to do part two of Inhale,
Yes.
because I think there's more to
Absolutely.
say. And I don't feel like we need to rush on to the next topics.
Yeah.
For a hot minute, I'm going to try to keep these weekly, if not every 10 days, these episodes, so that we
Yeah.
can just get I would like to get a basic library, so to speak, of info
Mhm.
out there.
Yes.
But in closing, I just want to say that what is technique? I didn't even really talk about that yet, but technique is a tool that when you apply it, you get the same result every single time. Now you're a
Yes.
human and you may be sick or you may be on your period or you may be whatever, experiencing illness, whatever, all kinds of things can
Mm.
happen to you. But regardless, technique will give you the same result, okay, within a
Yes.
range, a very small range, but you're going to get the same result. If you can't talk about the inhale in a
Yeah.
succinct way and you can't also then demonstrate it exactly the
That's
same way
right.
every time. If you cannot get the same appoggio, if you cannot make
That's
the
right.
same sounds, you do not yet either A, have a technique, or
Right.
you B, do not have a coordinated
You
version
don't
of
have
the technique.
consistency in your coordination yet.
That's not a that's not a
You're a
technique
little
yet.
green shoot that just came out of the
Right.
soil and you're on your way to growing up, but you're too vulnerable. Like you're not baked in the oven yet. You need a little more time.
Let me just ask you one in closing something fun.
Yes.
Back to the nod to James Lipton's Inside the Actor Studio. Name
Yes.
for now
Yes.
one thing that you cherish or that
Mm.
it could be something you're working on, something you're
Hmm.
teaching, a concept, something you're singing, a poem, a person, a human, an artist, anything. One cherished thing that is inspiring you right now in this very moment.
Oh,
I
that's a
know
good
it's
question.
a heavy ask. It's a heavy ask.
I would say right now, I mean, my singers that come to me inspire me literally every day. I want to pinch myself. I feel so lucky and
Mm,
honored that people trust me with their instruments, especially with
yeah,
when it's my own business colleagues and ex-singing colleagues coming to me.
yeah, yeah.
But
Isn't that a
but
great
teaching
blessing?
is an out. It's a people are plugging into you because they need something, and it's a giving. You are the battery. The thing that's feeding my soul right now is nature and poetry, and one of my favorite poets is Mary Oliver. And
Mm,
any time that I'm feeling crispy burnt, we're coming down into like the last couple of months left before like the big season for teaching, as well as what's going on in the industry. I take a walk, and I take a walk with a poem or two of hers, and it reminds me of who I am, and reminds me of what my priorities are, and how actually insignificant, how beautiful the world is, how beautiful we are. Everything we need is inside of us, but
Would
to not take
you
ourselves too seriously. We're a very small part of a very large system.
would you put that in a link when I finally get this posted
Yes,
today? That'd be
I
great. A
will.
Mary Oliver poem.
I will send you a link of one of my favorite poems of hers right now.
Thank you so much for being with
You're
me today. Thank you for putting up with all of my, oh, we're alive. Oh, guess we're
What are you
not. No, we're
talking about? I'm like, I feel every year of my 50 years, I'm like, I don't know how these kids do the online thing. I've got to ask my 14-year-old niece how we do these things. I
not.
don't
Well,
know. I'm getting
I
better.
I love talking with you about anything, ice
Thank
cream,
you.
people, humans, but especially singing. Um,
Yes.
so I bid
I
you
think
adieu.
this idea is brilliant, and it's
I
very, very generous of you to
I
be
think they're
this
gonna
open
grow.
with
We're
this.
gonna do a bunch more,
We're going to do more. All right. We're
but
going to
let
do
me
more.
figure it
This was
out.
only first part one. We're going to do part two in just a
That's
uh,
right. That's
shake
right.
of a lamb's tail. All right.
Right.
I'll see you later.
Thank
Blah,
you,
blah,
love.
blah. Bye.
Bye.